There are women who walk into a room and immediately attract attention because of what they display. It may be the outfit, the carefully practiced posture, the voice shaped to sound impressive, the kind of presence that seems built to be noticed. And then there is another kind of woman, one who almost never needs any of that. She does not push herself forward. She does not beg to be seen. She does not spend her energy trying to create an entrance. Yet when she arrives, something changes in the atmosphere. The room feels different, not because she is trying to dominate it, but because she already knows how to govern herself. That is the kind of woman many people now call a Sigma woman, a modern label used to describe someone rare, self-contained, difficult to read, quietly strong, deeply independent. But what most people miss is that her rarity does not come from distance, and it certainly does not come from coldness. It does not come from acting unreachable or pretending she needs no one. What makes her rare runs far deeper than any attitude people can copy from the outside. What makes her rare is her ability to remain whole in a world that is constantly trying to divide a woman against herself. And when you look at that carefully, you begin to see how closely it touches the heart of Stoic philosophy. Stoicism was never about appearing strong in front of others. It was about becoming strong enough that your peace does not collapse every time life becomes difficult. It was never about winning arguments, humiliating opponents, or controlling everyone around you. It was about refusing to become a slave to fear, to craving, to wounded pride, to impulsive reactions, to the endless hunger for approval. The rarest woman is not rare because she was born superior to other women. She is rare because at some point she saw the script the world was offering her. It told her to live by appearance, by emotional dependency, by urgency, by comparison, by performance. And at some point, quietly but decisively, she stopped accepting that script. While many people build their lives around being validated, she learns how to live at peace with her own conscience. While many people talk too much because silence would expose their emptiness, she discovers the kind of silence that reveals depth instead of lack. While many people confuse power with the ability to influence, intimidate, or control, she learns that the highest form of power is self-rule. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and that idea changes a life when it is truly understood. Because once it settles in you, you realize that you cannot stop the world from judging, tempting, provoking, ignoring, misunderstanding, or disappointing you. You cannot control the motives of others, the timing of life, the behavior of the immature, or the stories people invent when they do not understand you. But you can decide what you will allow to stain your inner life. You can decide whether your soul will carry resentment or clarity, desperation or steadiness, envy or discipline, bitterness or wisdom. Seen through that lens, the Sigma woman is not rare because she is mysterious. She is rare because she refuses to let her soul be colored by desperation, by neediness, by comparison, and by the kind of resentment that turns pain into an identity. She may have been hurt. She may have been underestimated, overlooked, betrayed, or treated carelessly. She may have gone through seasons that nearly crushed her softness. But she did not let pain become her definition. And that is where the truly rare woman separates herself from the merely performative one. The performative woman builds an image. The rare woman builds character. The performative woman collects phrases, gestures, and attitudes that look powerful from a distance. The rare woman builds inner government. The performative woman uses coldness as armor because she is still ruled by the wound. The rare woman cultivates calm because she has learned that reacting to everything is another way of handing your peace over to the world. That difference matters more than people think. Coldness often comes from injury trying to look superior. Calm comes from a soul that has discovered that not everything deserves a response, that not every emotion deserves obedience, that not every disappointment deserves a collapse. Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and perhaps one of the greatest battles for women today happens exactly there, in the unseen theater of the mind. It happens in the scenarios that never become real, in the messages that never come, in the answers that may never come, in the silent comparisons that begin on a screen and slowly erode self-worth from within. The rare woman is not immune to any of that. She is simply more honest about the poison, and because she sees it sooner, she refuses to drink it as often. She understands that to live by the reactions of others is to live in chains. She understands that trying to be desired by everyone is one of the fastest ways to lose yourself. She understands that the anxiety of pleasing others can quietly destroy the freedom of being real. Then something almost invisible begins inside her, something small from the outside but revolutionary at the level of the soul, she stops negotiating away her essence. You see it in quiet decisions, in the way she does not change her opinion every time she enters a different room, in the way she listens more than she explains, in the way she does not beg for space, because she knows dignity does not begin with an invitation, in the way she does not chase the person who clearly wants the thrill of being pursued more than the reality of connection, in the way she does not turn rejection into a final statement about her worth, in the way she knows how to leave without spectacle when staying would mean slowly abandoning herself. Epictetus taught that some things are up to us and some things are not. It is one of the most famous Stoic teachings and one of the least practiced, because modern suffering so often comes from trying to control what was never ours to command. Another person's attention, another person's recognition, another person's maturity, the image others create of us, the past, time, the changing moods of those who are not rooted in themselves. As the rare woman matures, she begins to release that burden. She understands that she cannot force anyone to see her value, but she can live with such inner coherence that lack of recognition stops feeling like a tragedy. She understands that she cannot stop people from talking, but she can become so settled in her own truth that gossip weakens before it reaches her. She understands that she cannot command anyone's love, but she can refuse to let loneliness tempt her into accepting crumbs disguised as intimacy. And that is where something powerful begins. When a woman stops trying to control the world, she gains energy to govern herself. And a woman who governs herself unsettles many people, because she is no longer easy to manipulate, easy to flatter, easy to provoke, easy to confuse, or easy to pull into emotional games. She knows the difference between loneliness and peace. She knows that being alone is not the same thing as being abandoned. She knows that solitude, if it is received with maturity, can become clarity instead of emptiness. This is one of the most misunderstood qualities of the rare woman. She can be alone without feeling hollow, not because she despises love or thinks she needs no one, but because she has understood something essential. People who cannot bear their own company almost always choose the wrong company. So she does not look for relationships to fill an inner void. She does not enter bonds to numb insecurity. She does not turn love into emotional begging. Before she shares her life, she learns how to inhabit it. That does not make her unavailable, it makes her selective, and there is wisdom in that. Selectiveness is not arrogance. It is emotional responsibility. Not every door should remain open. Not every conversation deserves to continue. Not every invitation deserves a yes. Not every spark deserves trust. Not every form of attention deserves access. The rare woman understands this because she has lived enough to know that intensity without character is danger, and appearance without virtue is only a beautiful illusion with a short life. Stoicism always placed virtue above decoration. For the Stoics, what made a person valuable was never what they displayed, but what they chose when no one applauded. Courage, temperance, justice, wisdom, those ancient pillars are still enough to build a noble soul. And perhaps the Sigma woman, at her highest and healthiest form, is simply a woman who has rebuilt herself on those pillars while living in a culture that rewards the opposite. She has the courage to leave what diminishes her, the temperance not to act at the peak of emotion, the justice not to become cruel simply because she was once wounded, and the wisdom to tell the difference between passing desire and true direction. That woman exists. She may not be the loudest. She may not be the most visible. She may not be the one people talk about the most. But she carries a strength that does not depend on favorable circumstances, and when beauty changes, when applause fades, when other people's masks fall, when life becomes less flattering and more revealing, she is still standing, because her roots were never planted in external admiration. They were planted in inner rule. That is why she feels rare. Not because she is perfect, but because in a world built on distraction she chose depth. Not because she has never suffered, but because she refused to turn suffering into a throne. Not because she does not feel intensely, but because she learned how to feel without surrendering her entire life to chaos. And that is where this reflection really begins, because the rarest woman is not just a trend, a social media label, or an internet archetype with a dramatic name. She is a discipline, a consciousness, a presence. More than anything else, she is a woman who learned not to abandon herself in order to fit into the world. When people try to describe this woman, they usually start with visible traits. They say she is reserved, independent, discreet, difficult to read, private, even intimidating. But those descriptions do not go deep enough because any of those traits can exist for very different reasons. A woman can be reserved because she is wise, but she can also be reserved because she is afraid. She can be independent because she is inwardly free, but she can also be independent because she never healed enough to trust. She can be quiet because she has depth, but she can also be quiet because insecurity taught her to disappear. From the outside, some behaviors look identical. On the inside, they are completely different worlds. That is why Stoicism always pushes us past appearances and toward the soul. It is never enough to look at the gesture alone. You have to look at the principle behind it, the discipline behind it, the kind of inner life that gave birth to it. The rare woman is not the woman who closes herself to everything. She is the woman who opens herself with awareness. She does not give herself away in the first moment, not because she wants to look special, but because she understands the value of intimacy. She knows that access to her inner world is not a casual thing. It is not entertainment, not a game, not something to be handed over simply because someone arrived with confidence, charm, or the right words in the right tone. That understanding usually does not arrive through advice alone. Most women do not learn self-worth because someone explained it beautifully. They learn it because life teaches it with force. They learn it when they offer loyalty and receive convenience in return. They learn it when they confuse attention with genuine interest. They learn it when they believe intensity without consistency. They learn it when they try to fix, save, excuse, and understand so much that one day they realize they have been emptying themselves to sustain something the other person never had the maturity to hold. At that point, many women harden. But the rare woman chooses a harder and nobler road. She matures. To harden is to close the heart and call it strength. To mature is to keep the heart alive while placing it under the guidance of wisdom. This is where the Stoic dimension becomes so important. The rare woman does not become less sensitive. She simply stops allowing sensitivity to be used against her. She learns that compassion without boundaries becomes self-erasure, that empathy without discernment becomes a trap, that love without lucidity becomes attachment that slowly poisons the soul. Seneca spoke often about emotional discipline, not in the sense of becoming numb, but in the sense of not being dragged away by every storm that rises inside. The rare woman feels deeply, but she does not move on every impulse. She does not send the message in the most desperate moment. She does not make important decisions in the middle of rage. She does not expose fresh wounds just to obtain pity. She does not grant full access to her private world simply because someone knew how to say what she wanted to hear. She learns how to wait, and in a culture addicted to immediacy, waiting is a form of power. She waits before responding. She waits before trusting. She waits before drawing conclusions. She waits before naming emotions that may still be moving beneath the surface. Most importantly, she waits long enough to see what remains after the first wave of charm passes. We live in a culture of speed. Fast attraction, fast promises, fast labels, fast emotional entanglements, fast disillusionment. Everyone wants to define everything too soon and feel everything too soon. But wisdom rarely grows in impulse. Wisdom grows in observation. The rare woman observes. She notices patterns. She notices contradictions. She notices when someone wants the glow of her presence, but not the responsibility that comes with it. She notices when she is being approached for emotional convenience rather than real connection. She notices the difference between admiration and respect, between attraction and honor, between intensity and stability. And that discernment is not a trick. It is the fruit of inner silence. People who live in constant noise cannot see clearly. People who need constant distraction cannot read reality well. People who are always trying to fill an inner void cannot evaluate what enters their lives with honesty. That is why the rare woman's withdrawal is not absence, it is method. She steps back so she can hear her own conscience. She steps back to filter the influence of the world. She steps back to remember who she is before other people's opinions attempt to rewrite her. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself as a man trying to stay upright under pressure. He was not searching for beautiful phrases. He was trying not to lose himself. The rare woman is doing something similar, even if she never uses that language. The world sees only the calm surface. It does not see how many times she had to breathe before answering, how many times she had to leave quietly so she would not reduce herself, how many times she had to choose dignity when impulse wanted drama, how many times she cried in private, gathered herself, and returned to life with the same steady grace. That grace is one of her most beautiful qualities, and it has very little to do with style. It comes from inner order. There is an elegance that appears when a woman no longer needs to win every confrontation, no longer needs the last word, no longer feels compelled to drag truth out of people who have already chosen blindness. She understands that not every explanation clarifies, not every defense convinces, and not every insistence honors her. Sometimes the highest form of dignity is leaving without turning another person's confusion into your lifelong burden. The rare woman does not try to force anyone to understand her value. She observes, understands, and decides. That takes strength, because many people spend years trying to turn indifference into love, disrespect into appreciation, and instability into a promise. The rare woman does not do that. She may grieve reality, but she does not negotiate with it. If truth shows her that something is small, she does not pretend it is great. If truth shows her that someone lacks the structure to receive her, she does not shrink herself to fit into their limitations. This is where we reach something essential. She does not dim her light to protect another person's mediocrity. That is not pride. It is self-respect. Many women have spent so much time adjusting themselves so they would not make anyone uncomfortable that they have forgotten their original shape. They learn to speak less, dream less, ask for less, need less, feel less, just to remain acceptable. Little by little, they abandon themselves in small, quiet installments. And the sad thing is that the world often praises this as maturity. It calls it being easy, being low maintenance, being understanding, being a good woman. But Stoicism reminds us that goodness does not mean pleasing everyone. Goodness means living according to virtue. And living according to virtue will often disturb the people who benefit from your confusion. It will distance the people who liked you available, but not awake. It will expose who is comfortable with your fragility, but uneasy with your wholeness. This is one reason the rare woman can seem intimidating to shallow people. Not because she is cruel, but because shallow people often sense depth before they can name it. And depth requires truth. It requires coherence. It requires substance. It asks for more than surface charm, more than seductive language, more than the temporary excitement of being noticed. The rare woman has substance, and substance is becoming rare. She did not arrive there overnight. She was shaped by pain, reflection, discernment, and the repeated choice not to betray herself. The more the world rewards appearance, the rarer substance becomes, and the rarer she becomes with it. She is also rare because she examines herself. This is crucial, because real Stoicism never lets a person stop at blaming the world. It asks a harder question: where am I still betraying myself? The rare woman asks that question. She does not merely complain that other people are shallow, manipulative, or emotionally lazy. She also looks inward with honesty. She asks where she is still acting out of fear, where she is still seeking approval, where she is still confusing loneliness with love, where she is still ignoring what reality is showing her. That kind of self-examination is not glamorous. It is often painful, but it is one of the noblest forms of courage, because most people prefer comfortable stories about themselves over the truth. The rare woman chooses truth. She understands that freedom begins when self-deception ends. She does not need to appear flawless. She needs to become real. And when truth is finally accepted, it may hurt at first, but then it starts putting an entire life in order. There is a scene that repeats itself in the lives of many women. At first, they try to be understood. They explain themselves carefully. They show their heart. They translate their intentions. They justify what they hope for. They soften their tone. They give more chances. They assume that if they become more patient, more useful, more forgiving, more emotionally generous, the other person will eventually respond with the same depth. For a while, that effort can look noble. It can even feel like love. But eventually reality speaks. One day they realize they have been doing alone the work that should have been carried from both sides. Something wakes up in that moment, and if the awakening is healthy, it is not theatrical pride, and it is not revenge. It is lucidity. It is the realization that insisting where there is no reciprocity is not devotion. It is self-disrespect. Stoicism gives this moment clarity because it teaches the difference between desire and reality. You may desire to be chosen, valued, understood, honored, loved. Those desires are human. The problem begins when desire becomes a refusal to see what is in front of you. The other person shows inconsistency, disinterest, emotional laziness, or immaturity, and you keep trying to pull from them a version of themselves they have never actually shown. The rare woman learns how to love without hallucinating. She learns how to feel without building a fantasy around every feeling. She learns how to see what is, not only what she wishes were true. That is wisdom. And wisdom often looks like coldness to people who live inside illusion. Perhaps that is why strong women are so often misunderstood. When they stop accepting little, people say they became demanding. When they stop chasing, people say they forgot how to love. When they step back to preserve peace, people call them arrogant. When they stop reacting to provocations, people say they are playing games. But often the truth is simpler than that. They are not performing distance. They are practicing self-respect. The Stoics never taught anyone to erase themselves to appear virtuous. They taught dignity. Not dignity based on status, image, or admiration, but dignity based on conduct. The awareness that your soul should not be sold for passing pleasure, fear of abandonment, or the hunger to be chosen. The rare woman lives from that awareness. She does not put her worth up for emotional auction. She does not offer everything to receive the bare minimum. She does not turn herself into a performance just to remain acceptable. She can communicate. She can speak truthfully. She can open her heart with sincerity. But she does not humiliate herself in the process. She does not turn her soul into a courtroom in the hope of forcing sensitivity out of someone who has repeatedly chosen blindness. She says what is true, and then she watches what reality does with that truth. If the answer is still confusion, evasion, half-presence, or repeated carelessness, she stops converting her pain into more explanation. She understands that the person who needs endless persuasion to see your value is already too late. That realization changes the story a woman tells herself about rejection. Epictetus said that what disturbs us is often not the thing itself, but the judgment we add to it. Rejection hurts, but what destroys many people is the meaning they attach to rejection. He did not choose me, so I must not be enough. She walked away, so I must not be lovable. They did not value me, so I must have no value. The rare woman interrupts that cycle. She may grieve deeply, but she does not turn pain into a sentence against her own being. She understands that another person's failure of perception does not define her reality. She understands that rejection is not diagnosis. She understands that the absence of reciprocity does not erase dignity. She understands that not every loss is punishment. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes a door closing is the very thing that saves a woman from building her life around what would have slowly broken her. This is why she becomes calmer. Not less human, not numb, but calmer. She no longer romanticizes instability. She no longer believes that confusion is proof of depth or that chaos is proof of chemistry. She learns that peace is not boredom, stability is not lack of passion, respect is not coldness, and clarity does not kill love. In fact, only clear love has a chance of lasting without destroying the people inside it. That understanding changes the way she relates to everyone. She becomes more selective with speech. She does not tell everything to everyone. She does not expose every emotion in real time. She knows there is power in protecting what is still forming inside her. The world encourages the opposite. Reveal everything immediately. React instantly. Broadcast the wound. Announce the healing before it even has roots. But wisdom moves differently. Wisdom knows that not every seed survives being placed in the wind too early. So the rare woman learns to cultivate the invisible. She works on her mind in silence. She examines patterns in private. She strengthens habits away from applause. She lets her life gain roots before she turns it into language. She also becomes careful with time. This matters more than most people realize. Time is not just a schedule, it is life itself. It is the substance from which a life is made. Many people lose years pouring themselves into confusion, chasing unstable people, maintaining pointless arguments, repeating habits that flatten the soul. The rare woman eventually understands that protecting her time is not selfish. It is sacred. She stops giving endless hours to what drains her. She stops returning to doors that have already shown her what lies behind them. She stops entertaining patterns she already recognizes as destructive. Outsiders sometimes call this distance, but distance is not always indifference. Sometimes distance is hygiene. Sometimes distance is how a soul stops bleeding. This selectiveness reaches beyond romance. It shapes friendship, family, work, and atmosphere. She notices who only comes near when there is drama, who feeds on gossip, who celebrates her only when she is small, who wants access to her private world without ever treating it with reverence. She notices the rooms that cheapen her and the rooms that sharpen her. Seneca warned often about the company we keep, because character is porous. Moods spread. Standards spread. Weakness spreads. Courage spreads too. So does calm, so does nobility, so does discipline. The rare woman pays attention to atmosphere. She knows that what surrounds you eventually shapes you. That is why she stops forcing herself to remain in places, conversations, and circles that constantly pull her away from herself. She trusts what reality is showing her. She stops overriding her own perception just to seem agreeable. She stops calling her inner warning signs irrational simply because someone else is charming. That restores enormous power to a woman's life, because self-betrayal often begins very quietly. You feel tension but smile anyway. You notice disrespect but explain it away. You sense inconsistency but call yourself overly sensitive. You know something is off, but you choose confusion because truth would require action. The rare woman becomes rare partly because she is willing to act. She is willing to leave what many people would keep rationalizing. She is willing to disappoint others rather than destroy herself. She is willing to endure the loneliness of transition rather than remain inside the comfort of a life that keeps diminishing her. That is courage in its real form. Real courage is rarely dramatic. Most of the time it looks like a woman sitting alone with an uncomfortable truth and deciding not to run from it. It looks like ending the conversation that keeps humiliating her. It looks like not returning to what has already revealed itself. It looks like choosing dignity over familiar chaos. This courage changes the way she loves. She no longer loves from hunger. She no longer treats love as rescue or tries to dissolve herself inside another person. She loves from fullness when she can, and when she cannot, she prefers solitude over distortion. She understands that the healthiest kind of intimacy can only exist between two people who know how to stand on their own feet. Otherwise, what is called love often becomes dependency, wearing beautiful language. The rare woman wants something deeper than emotional intoxication. She wants mutual honor, mutual steadiness, mutual truth. She wants a bond where both people show up as whole adults rather than wounded children asking each other to manage what they refuse to face alone. That does not mean she is unrealistic. It means her standards are clean, and clean standards protect peace. People often imagine that standards make life harder. In the short term they do, because standards require saying no, walking away, waiting longer, disappointing those who wanted easy access, and leaving false possibilities before they become real damage. But in the long term, standards make life lighter. They remove confusion early. They save years. They keep a woman from building a home inside what was never safe. The rare woman is not proud of being hard to reach. That would still be ego. She is simply no longer available at the price of her own soul. She has learned that any relationship, job, friendship, or environment that requires her to abandon her center is already asking too much. That is why she seems rare. She is no longer willing to pay for belonging with self-betrayal. And that is also why she becomes more peaceful. Not because life becomes easy, but because she is no longer wasting so much of herself resisting what truth has already made clear. She understands that freedom is not the ability to have everything. Freedom is the refusal to kneel before what weakens you. Freedom is the ability to say, "This does not honor my life," and then act accordingly. Freedom is the discipline to remain faithful to your own clarity when loneliness, desire, guilt, or nostalgia try to bargain you out of it. The rare woman is not the woman who never longs, never doubts, never misses, never feels torn. She is the woman who can feel all of that and still refuse to return to what would cost her too much. That is not coldness. It is self-possession. And in a world where so many people are easy to trigger, easy to flatter, easy to tempt, and easy to destabilize, a self-possessed woman becomes extraordinary. One of the deepest mistakes people make when thinking about a woman like this is imagining that her strength came naturally, as if she were simply born more composed, more detached, more self-contained than everyone else. But most of the time the truth is the opposite. Many rare women became rare because life forced them to confront themselves. They had to walk through disappointment. They had to survive seasons in which no one came to rescue them. They had to build inner shelter because they discovered how fragile outer shelter can be. Pain does not automatically make anyone wise. Sometimes it only makes people reactive. But pain met with reflection can become refinement, and that is often part of the making of this woman. She may once have trusted too quickly, stayed too long, explained too much, doubted herself too often, and offered depth to those who had no capacity to honor it. Many women know that story. Many lose years in that story. Because it is difficult to admit that your love cannot teach another person maturity, that your loyalty cannot create integrity where there is none, that your patience cannot force clarity into someone committed to confusion. The rare woman reaches a turning point when she stops asking how to become more acceptable and starts asking what truth requires of her. That shift changes everything. The question is no longer, how do I keep this? The question becomes, should this be kept at all? The question is no longer, how do I get them to see me? The question becomes, what am I seeing clearly that I used to ignore? The question is no longer, how do I avoid being left? The question becomes, why was I willing to stay where I had to keep leaving myself? This is the birth of discernment, and discernment is one of the rarest feminine strengths because it requires two things at once: softness and steel. Softness to stay open to truth, and steel to act on truth when it asks something painful. The Stoics understood this in their own language. They taught that to live well, you must align yourself with reality, not with fantasy, not with appetite, not with fear. Reality. That means seeing people as they are, not as longing paints them. It means seeing situations as they are, not as ego narrates them. It means accepting when something is small, when something is ending, when something is beneath the dignity of your soul, even if a part of you still wants to cling. This acceptance does not make the rare woman passive. It makes her clean. It clears the fog. It frees her from fighting imaginary battles with what is already obvious. Once that fog lifts, she begins protecting her attention, because attention is one of the most sacred resources a human being has. What you repeatedly give attention to will shape your inner world. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he reminded himself to guard the mind. A scattered mind produces a scattered life. A mind addicted to comparison becomes restless. A mind fed by resentment becomes bitter. A mind ruled by impulse becomes unstable. The rare woman knows this, so she becomes careful with what she consumes, with the conversations she entertains, with the stories she repeats to herself, with the kind of emotional material she allows to live inside her. She learns that not every thought deserves belief, not every feeling deserves obedience, not every fear deserves authority, and not every desire deserves expression. This is not repression. It is governance. Repression pretends something is not there. Governance looks it in the face and says, "You will not run my life." That is one of the deepest forms of power she develops, and it is not the kind the world measures well. The world celebrates visible power, status, attention, influence, noise. The rare woman develops invisible power, the power to remain composed when chaos would be easier, the power to leave when attachment begs her to stay, the power to remain silent when vanity wants the last word, the power to choose principle over immediate relief. That is why real presence begins to grow in her. Presence cannot be manufactured for long. Anyone can imitate confidence for a few moments. Anyone can post a quote or perform detachment. But genuine presence comes from repeated integrity. It comes from living in such a way that peace begins to settle into the body, into the eyes, into the voice, into the rhythm of a woman's life. That is why truly rare women do not need to announce their standards. You can feel them. You feel them in the pause before she answers, in the way she does not rush to fill silence, in the way she can say no without cruelty, in the way she does not become frantic when something leaves, in the way she refuses to chase confusion. This does not mean she never struggles. It means she no longer worships struggle. She no longer believes every battle deserves her strength or every connection deserves her effort. She has begun asking a different question: what is worthy of my life? Not in an arrogant way, but in a responsible way. Because your life is something entrusted to you. Your peace is something entrusted to you. Your soul is something entrusted to you. Once that truth becomes real, you stop treating your inner world as public property. That changes everything. At work, she no longer needs gossip to belong. She no longer shrinks her competence to protect other people's comfort. She learns how to be kind without becoming weak, how to be firm without becoming hard, how to let excellence speak louder than performance. In family life, she stops carrying roles that were handed to her through guilt. She learns that being available at all times is not the same as being loving, and that boundaries are not a betrayal of love. Often they are the only structure that allows love to survive without resentment. In friendship, she values sincerity over familiarity. She stops investing deeply in people who bond only through complaint, gossip, convenience, or shared damage. She becomes drawn to the rare kind of friendship where silence is comfortable, honesty is safe, and growth is celebrated rather than punished. In her inner life, she becomes harder to seduce with vanity. She no longer wants praise at the cost of fragmentation. She no longer wants attention that disconnects her from her center. She begins to crave what the world often overlooks: quiet mornings, clean thoughts, ordered habits, truthful speech, integrity in private, the kind of rest that comes only when the conscience is not at war with the life being lived. That is another reason she seems rare. Many people chase excitement. She chases alignment. And alignment can look boring to a culture addicted to drama. But what appears boring from the outside often feels like freedom from the inside. There is peace in not decoding mixed signals. There is peace in not performing a version of yourself to keep someone interested. There is peace in not wondering every day where you stand with the people you let close. There is peace in a life that does not require constant emotional cleanup. And that peace is not an accident. It is built through repeated loyalty to truth. The Stoics knew that a disordered soul will suffer even in luxury, while an ordered soul can preserve dignity even under pressure. The rare woman takes that seriously. She knows that beauty, status, admiration, and desire are unstable currencies. They rise and fall. They can attract attention without attracting reverence. But character is different. Character is built. Character is carried. Character becomes shelter. And when a woman becomes shelter to herself, she stops begging the world to become home. That is one of the clearest marks of her maturity. She still enjoys love, beauty, companionship, achievement, warmth, laughter, and meaningful connection. Stoicism does not require her to reject any of those things. It simply teaches her not to make an idol of them. She can enjoy them without kneeling before them. She can appreciate them without becoming possessed by them. She can lose some of them without losing herself. That is freedom, and freedom creates a different kind of femininity, one built not on performance, manipulation, or passivity, but on presence, truthful emotion, measured speech, and the courage to remain soft without becoming naive. This matters because the world often offers women a false choice. Be soft and be used, or be hard and remain untouched. But Stoicism points towards something better. Be governed. Govern your impulses, your fears, your appetites, your speech, your reactions. From that government comes a softness that is no longer gullible and a strength that is no longer harsh. This is why the rare woman can be both gentle and unshakable. She can be compassionate without surrendering discernment. She can be warm without dropping her standards. She can forgive without reopening doors that should remain closed. She can be kind without becoming available to disrespect. She can love deeply and still remain anchored. That anchoring changes romance too. When she loves, she is not trying to hook someone through confusion or make herself unforgettable through emotional extremes. She values clarity more than people expect. Clear intentions, clear words, clear actions, real steadiness, real effort, real honor. Some people call this idealistic, but it is not idealism. It is discipline. She knows that what begins in confusion usually continues in confusion. She knows that what requires endless rationalization often has something rotten at the root. She knows that what is built only on chemistry will collapse when chemistry changes, because chemistry always changes. So she looks deeper. She asks what remains when mood shifts, when life becomes inconvenient, when excitement cools, when responsibility arrives. That question is deeply Stoic. What remains when illusion, comfort, flattery, fear, and ego are stripped away? What in you is stable enough to trust? What in the other person is stable enough to build on? The rare woman lives with those questions, even if she never puts them into philosophical language. She may never call herself Stoic. She may never quote a philosopher. But if she has learned to govern her inner world, choose virtue over spectacle, and honor peace over chaos, then she is already walking in that spirit. That is why the healthiest meaning of the Sigma woman has nothing to do with a trend. At its best, it is simply another name for self-possession. Not possession of others, not the power to dominate outcomes, not the power to make everyone admire her, but possession of herself. Her mind belongs to her. Her standards belong to her. Her peace belongs to her. Her conscience belongs to her. Her yes comes from conviction, not pressure. Her no comes from center, not mood. In a world that profits from people being easy to trigger, easy to flatter, easy to tempt, easy to destabilize, a self-possessed woman becomes almost revolutionary. She cannot be cheaply bought with attention. She cannot be easily moved by absence. She cannot be easily baited by disrespect. She cannot be dazzled for long by what has no substance. This does not make her impossible to reach. It makes her real, and reality is always rarer than performance. So if someone asks what makes the rarest woman on earth so rare, the answer is not mystery. It is mastery, not mastery over others, but mastery over self. Mastery of thought deep enough to question destructive stories. Mastery of emotion deep enough to feel without collapsing. Mastery of speech deep enough to know when silence is cleaner. Mastery of desire deep enough not to chase what weakens the soul. Mastery of attention deep enough to stop feeding what poisons peace. That mastery is never complete. It is practiced daily, quietly, imperfectly, faithfully. And perhaps that is the most stoic ending possible for this reflection. The rare woman is not the woman who never falls. She is the woman who keeps returning to what is highest in her. Again and again. After disappointment. After temptation. After loneliness. After error. After grief. She returns to reason. She returns to dignity. She returns to self-respect. She returns to virtue. That return is what makes her strong. That return is what makes her beautiful. That return is what makes her rare. Many people can impress for a moment. Very few can remain inwardly faithful over time. The woman who learns that kind of faithfulness becomes more than desirable. She becomes steady. More than admired, she becomes trustworthy. More than interesting, she becomes whole. And in the end, wholeness is what people are really searching for when they become fascinated by the image of a rare woman. They are trying to name the power of a woman who is no longer at war with herself. A woman who still loves, still hopes, still grieves, still dreams, still feels the weight of life, but no longer lives on her knees before chaos. She stands. Quiet perhaps, selective certainly, soft when softness is true, firm when firmness is needed, but standing. And that is why she is rare. Not because she is the coldest, the most distant, or the most inaccessible. She is rare because she knows her worth without turning it into arrogance. She protects her peace without needing to wound anyone. She knows how to love without kneeling, how to leave without hatred, how to stay without disappearing, how to feel without being ruled by every feeling that passes through her. In the middle of a noisy world, she chooses to be governed by virtue rather than chaos. That is what makes her unforgettable. Not the mystery, not the image, not the reputation of being rare, but the serenity of a soul that has finally learned how to belong to itself. And perhaps that is the final lesson hidden inside this whole idea. The rarest woman is not the one trying to look rare. She is the one living so honestly that rarity becomes a consequence. She is not acting detached in order to seem powerful. She is building an inner life sturdy enough that desperation no longer needs to run the show. She is not performing independence because it looks impressive. She is learning how to stand inside herself so that love becomes a gift rather than a necessity for survival. She is not rejecting the world. She is simply refusing to lose herself inside it. Once a woman reaches that point, her presence changes. She enters rooms without begging them to confirm her. She leaves places without needing them to collapse in her absence. She loves without making another person her center of gravity. She works without making achievement her identity. She rests without feeling worthless. She speaks without overselling herself. She is able to be fully in life without being possessed by it. That is the woman people sense when they talk about a Sigma woman, even if they do not yet have the language to describe her well. What they are feeling is not merely independence. It is integrity, not merely privacy. It is inner order, not merely calm. It is disciplined peace. And disciplined peace is one of the most beautiful things a human being can build. It is beautiful because it cannot be faked for long. It must be earned through choices, through restraint, through loss, through honesty, through the repeated decision to stop abandoning yourself. That is why this woman feels rare in any culture, in any era. Wherever people are noisy, reactive, hungry for approval, and ruled by impulse, the one who has learned self-government will stand out. Not loudly, but unmistakably. There is also something else that makes her rare in the modern world. She is no longer willing to confuse stimulation with meaning. This culture is full of things that keep people emotionally activated, but spiritually empty. Endless content, endless opinions, endless noise, endless comparison, endless access to other people's curated lives, endless chances to feel inadequate, restless, distracted, or hungry for more. Many people live inside that cycle for years without realizing how much of their inner life has been taken from them. The rare woman notices the cost. She notices what constant overstimulation does to attention, what constant comparison does to gratitude, what constant emotional consumption does to peace. So she starts choosing differently. She values what steadies her rather than what agitates her. She chooses conversations that leave her clearer instead of more fragmented. She chooses habits that build her instead of habits that merely distract her. She chooses depth over excess, order over impulse, and presence over performance. This is not because she is trying to look pure or superior. It is because she finally understands that whatever repeatedly enters the mind eventually enters the character. If you live on noise, you become noisy inside. If you live on envy, you become incapable of joy. If you live on resentment, you begin to poison your own days. But if you live on discipline, gratitude, self-respect, and truth, you begin to create an inner atmosphere strong enough to protect you even when the outer world remains unstable. That is one more reason her peace feels unusual. It is not accidental peace. It is cultivated peace, and cultivated peace is always rare. So let the final memory be this. The rarest woman on earth is not rare because the world gave her something special. She is rare because she stopped giving away what was sacred. She guarded her mind. She refined her character. She faced pain without making pain her throne. She learned to walk away from what dimmed her and to remain faithful to what was noblest within her. She became the kind of woman who can be deeply loving without being easily possessed, deeply feeling without being easily shattered, deeply present without becoming easy to consume. And once a woman reaches that kind of inner steadiness, she no longer needs to advertise her value. It is felt, it is carried, it is lived. In a world of noise, she becomes quiet authority. In a world of performance, she becomes substance. In a world of chaos, she becomes order. And in a world where so many people keep losing themselves just to be wanted, she becomes unforgettable because she has finally learned how to remain her own. And before you go, subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this, more Stoic wisdom, more clarity, and more strength for everyday life. And leave a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I always love seeing how far these ideas travel, and it means a lot to know which part of the world you're listening from.